The date was December 8, 1980. The time, just after 10:50 p.m. A seemingly ordinary winter evening was about to become etched in history, a moment that would forever alter the landscape of music and peace. John Lennon was returning to his apartment at the Dakota, a famous and historic old building on New York's Upper West Side. This iconic building, a fortress of elegance and artistry, would soon become the site of unimaginable tragedy. The city's night air was cold but calm, a typical December chill hanging in the air. The yellow lights of Manhattan blinked all around, a million stories unfolding beneath the vast star-dusted sky. Little did anyone know, a dark chapter was about to be written. Suddenly the silence was torn apart. 5 sharp cracks shattered the peace, each one a devastating blow to the world's collective heart. The echoes of those shots would reverberate for generations to come. John Lennon, ex-Beatle, legendary artist and passionate peace activist, collapsed onto the hard pavement. A visionary who dared to imagine a world without war now lay wounded, his dreams seemingly extinguished in an instant. Mark David Chapman stood nearby, gun in hand, his eyes distant and empty, reflecting a chilling detachment from the gravity of his actions. The motive behind this senseless act remained shrouded in darkness, a question mark hanging over the tragedy. Within minutes the night air filled with the piercing wail of sirens, a desperate race against time to save a life that was already slipping away. The city's pulse quickened with a sense of impending doom. Paramedics rushed Lennon to Roosevelt Hospital, their efforts fueled by a desperate hope. But despite their best attempts, it was too late. The world had lost one of its brightest stars. News of his death flashed across television screens and radios, a shocking bulletin that spread like wildfire across the globe. The world stood still, grappling with the unbearable reality. In Liverpool, his birthplace Tokyo, a city that embraced his music, Paris, the city of love and art, and New York, his adopted home, crowds gathered in stunned silence, their faces etched with disbelief and grief. People wept openly in the streets, their tears a testament to the profound impact Lennon had on their lives. The world had lost more than a musician, it had lost a voice. It had lost a symbol of hope, a beacon of peace in a world often consumed by conflict. Lennon's murder felt unreal, like a bad dream that wouldn't end, a nightmare that haunted the collective consciousness. Songs of love and peace suddenly sounded like distant echoes, a poignant reminder of what had been lost. The shock was global and immediate, a wave of sorrow washing over the planet. Every corner of the world felt the loss, from bustling cities to remote villages. Millions mourned together, united in disbelief and sorrow, forever marked by the night that stopped the world. December 8, 1980. A day that began with the promise of any other, soon to be etched in history for the most tragic of reasons. He woke up in his Dakota apartment, a place that had become his sanctuary in New York City. He spent the morning with Yoko Ono, their bond as strong as ever. The morning included a photo shoot with Annie Leibovitz. Later that day, he gave an interview to a young radio journalist, a fresh voice eager to speak with a legend. Lennon spoke with passion about hope, his evolving music, his plans for the future with Yoko, and the enduring importance of love and peace in a world that often seemed to lack both. Nothing in the air suggested that this would be his last day on Earth, a day that would forever alter the landscape of music and culture. That afternoon, Lennon and Yoko headed to the record plant studio, ready to immerse themselves in their creative world. They worked on a new song, Walking on Thin Ice, a track brimming with Yoko's energy, laughing and chatting about their music, their shared vision palpable in the studio air. Outside the Dakota, a 25-year-old man named Mark David Chapman, harboring a dark obsession, waited patiently in the cold. Earlier in the day, Chapman had approached Lennon, feigning admiration and asking for an autograph. Lennon, ever gracious to his fans, obliged, signing the cover of his album Double Fantasy. A photographer, quite by chance, captured the moment, Lennon smiling warmly, completely unaware of the sinister intent lurking behind the request. As the day faded, evening fell, casting long shadows as Lennon and Yoko returned to the Dakota, their haven in the city. The sidewalk was quiet, the New York sky dark and vast above them. As Lennon stepped from his car, eager to be home, Chapman emerged from the shadows, his intentions now clear. 5 gunshots rang out, shattering the silence of the night. In a heartbeat, the ordinary day turned into unspeakable tragedy. A figure of peace, love, and immense creativity, struck down in an act of senseless violence that reverberates to this day. December 8, 1980. A date forever etched in the memory of music lovers worldwide. But who was the man who waited for John Lennon outside the Dakota that fateful evening? What drove him to commit such a heinous act? Mark David Chapman grew up in Texas and Georgia during a time of great social change and upheaval. By all accounts, he was a shy and troubled boy, often withdrawn and struggling to find his place in the world. As he entered adulthood, he drifted through life working odd jobs from factory floors to gas stations. He seemed to be constantly searching for meaning and purpose, a direction that remained elusive. Chapman became increasingly obsessed over J.D. Salinger's novel The Catcher in the Rye, identifying strongly with the protagonist, Holden Caulfield, and his disillusionment with the adult world. The book became his Bible, a lens through which he viewed society. He also fixated on John Lennon, initially idolizing him as a symbol of peace and rebellion. However, over time, Chapman began seeing him as a phony and a betrayer of the values he once sang about, a hypocrite living a life of luxury far removed from his message of peace and love. Chapman's journey to New York was not a spontaneous act, but a meticulously planned and deliberate mission, fueled by a growing sense of resentment and a distorted desire for notoriety. He arrived in the city days before the murder, spending his time wandering the streets, carefully studying Lennon's movements and familiarizing himself with the area around the Dakota building, his target growing ever closer. On the morning of December 8, the day of the shooting, Chapman bought a copy of The Catcher in the Rye, seemingly to solidify his twisted connection to the novel and its themes. Inside the cover, he wrote a chilling inscription: "This is my statement, a declaration of intent, a prelude to the tragedy that was about to unfold." He carried the book with him throughout the day, clutching it like a talisman, even as he waited outside the Dakota for hours, patiently stalking his prey. After shooting Lennon multiple times at close range, Chapman did not run, nor did he attempt to escape the consequences of his actions. He simply stepped back, dropped the gun onto the pavement, and calmly took out his copy of The Catcher in the Rye, opening it to a random page. When police arrived at the scene, they found Chapman reading, seemingly detached from the chaos and horror he had just unleashed, almost peaceful in his surrender. "Do you know what you've just done?" an officer asked, his voice filled with disbelief. "Yes, I just shot John Lennon," Chapman replied softly, his tone devoid of emotion. The calmness in his voice and demeanor was unnerving, a chilling indication that he had meticulously rehearsed this moment in his mind 1,000 times, transforming fantasy into horrifying reality. Chapman's background was a puzzle for investigators and journalists. He had no criminal record, no known history of violence. Yet, he suffered from deep mental health struggles. Friends described him as withdrawn, sometimes falling into dark moods. He spoke of hearing voices, of feeling invisible. His obsession with Lennon grew over years, a mix of anger, jealousy, and twisted admiration. In the days before the murder, Chapman made several strange calls to his wife in Hawaii. He told her he felt lost and confused. He hinted at something terrible but never explained. After the shooting, psychologists called Chapman delusional. He believed he was carrying out a mission, removing a phony from the world. Yet he showed little emotion about what he had done. Chapman's actions immediately after the murder were odd. He did not resist arrest. He apologized to police, saying, "I acted alone." He even asked for forgiveness. The case seemed open and shut. Still, many wondered how a quiet, ordinary man could commit such a shocking act, and why he seemed so cold, so certain. In most high-profile murders, the world watches a trial unfold. Evidence is presented, motives are debated. The accused stands before a jury, and the public seeks answers. But in the case of John Lennon, there was no trial. Chapman's lawyers planned to argue insanity. Instead, Chapman suddenly pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. The judge accepted his plea, and Chapman was sentenced to 20 years to life in prison. The absence of a trial was unusual, and honestly, unsettling. Lennon's fans were denied the chance to hear Chapman explain himself on the stand. The process that might have revealed more about his motives, his mental state, and any possible influences, was never allowed to play out in public view. The world was left with more questions than answers. With no public testimony, the details of Chapman's obsession and the events leading up to the murder were left mostly to speculation. Critics argued that the justice system failed to provide closure. The silence in the courtroom echoed the silence left by Lennon's absence, a silence filled with doubt and mystery. The lack of a trial fueled rumors and conspiracy theories. Some pointed to Lennon's activism, his outspoken opposition to the Vietnam War, his FBI surveillance during the Nixon years. Was there more to the story? Files later revealed that Lennon was watched closely by government agents, who feared his influence on young people and the peace movement. Others whispered about mind control. The CIA's secret MK-Ultra program, which experimented with brainwashing, became part of the legend. Was Chapman programmed, a pawn in a larger scheme to silence Lennon? No evidence has ever been found to support these claims, but the rumors persist, stoked by the unresolved nature of the case and Chapman's bizarre calm. Still others questioned whether Chapman acted alone. Was he mentally ill, or was he manipulated, perhaps even watched by shadowy figures? Theories grew in the darkness left by unanswered questions. The truth, official or otherwise, remains tangled in rumor and speculation. When Lennon died, the world lost a voice for peace, rebellion, and love. His music spoke to generations. Songs like Imagine and Give Peace a Chance became anthems for dreamers, rebels, and outsiders everywhere. Lennon's words reached across borders and barriers, offering hope in troubled times. In the days after his murder, millions gathered to mourn. Fans sang his songs in candlelit vigils, holding hands and weeping together. Murals and shrines sprang up across cities. Lennon's message of nonviolence grew stronger in death. His life became a legend, his voice an echo that refused to fade. To this day, Lennon's work inspires artists, activists, and peacemakers. His vision of a world united by music and love remains a guiding light, a reminder of what was lost and what is still possible. Lennon's murder changed the music world forever. The Beatles would never reunite. The possibility, always just out of reach, vanished in an instant. For musicians, losing Lennon was like losing a North Star. The boundaries of what music could mean and what it could do suddenly seemed smaller. The peace movement, already struggling in the 1980s, lost one of its boldest and most charismatic leaders. Lennon had believed in the power of protest, of music as a force for social change. His absence was deeply felt. The world felt colder, less hopeful. Activists mourned not just the man but what he represented, a future where art and activism might change the world. Generations grew up with Lennon's ghost haunting their dreams of peace. Each year on the anniversary of his death, fans return to the Dakota and strawberry fields. They sing, remember, and wonder what might have been. Lennon's legacy is a question as much as an answer. John Lennon's murder remains one of the great mysteries of modern culture. Why did Chapman do it? Was he driven by madness alone, or was something larger at work? The lack of a trial left a void, a story half told, facts half seen. The world is still searching for answers. Theories abound, but certainty remains elusive. Was Lennon targeted for his beliefs? Did surveillance and suspicion play a role in his fate? Or was it simply a tragic collision of obsession and opportunity? The silence around the case is as haunting as Lennon's lost voice. Today, millions remember John Lennon not just for his music, but for the questions that followed his death. The mystery endures, a reminder that some wounds do not heal. In the end, we are left with Lennon's dream, a world of peace, shattered yet still possible, and with the hope that justice one day will have its day in court.